We are.
Anything fresh on your mind?
No.
Anything you want to share? Let's open floor.
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna try to continue to feel good about what we're doing here. You know, we've stacked some wins at home, and we're gonna try to build on that.
What does the, Buffalo's been obviously on the elite teams, what do they possess for you?
Well, they're a good team, obviously. I think they have an explosive offense. They have threats throughout their lineup. In particular, on their defense core, their top four defensemen, if I'm not mistaken, have over 40 5-on-5 goals. So it just shows you the depth that they have offensively. They're a dynamic group.
Do you look at the jump that they made this year and kind of try to want to model yourself after them in a way next year?
Well, when you look at the history of the Sabres and how that team was built, that's been built. It's taken them over a decade to get to where they're at. You know, like their lineup right now is littered with first-round draft picks that have developed and aged over the course of time. So, I don't know that that's the model that we would apply here.
No, for a decade here. No, wait a decade here. No.
I'd like to think we could be more aggressive.
You threw, obviously, Drew into it and just said, just go swing. How do you think he's handled it, the games that he's had to go out there for?
I think he's done a good job. Obviously there's a lot of attributes that Drew has that we can see and we really like. I think, there are moments when you recognize that, it's an adjustment. It's a big jump from college hockey to the NHL, regardless of the type of player that you are. And so I think Drew is trying to get accustomed to that, the speed of the game, the strength of the players, things of that nature. And he's had moments when I think he's handled it very well. I think there's been others when he's been overwhelmed a little bit. I think, that's just part of the process that he is beginning, to undertake here to become, the pro that we all think and hope he'll become.
You talked about more recently playing more of a team game and how that's led to some obviously more wins recently. Earlier, I feel like we talked a lot about identity as well. Do you see the recent success as a clear sign that the team is, maybe it took longer than you'd like in some ways, but that identity that you've been preaching all year, is that maybe now finally coming into focus for them in some ways?
I just think we've been getting to it more consistently, and we've had moments throughout the course of the year where we really liked our overall team game. When you talk about a team game, you talk about identity. It's probably one of the same. I think any organization when they probably discuss their identity, the team game is a central focus of that. I think it's hard to win if you don't have that. And so, we're trying to build, when I say it, to define more clearly what I mean, when I say we're trying to build a team game, what we're talking about is commitment, commitment to the concepts and the strategies that we're trying to deploy here on both sides of the puck. There's an element of predictability when we're all on the same page on both sides of the puck, and I think that makes us harder to play against. I think we can play the game faster because we're more predictable, and so those are all the elements that are in play. So, I think that's an important aspect of any identity that we're trying to build, is just the concept of predictability and commitment to playing the game the right way. And so we're trying to define what that is here. So I think most recently in the last stretch of games, there's been a consistent commitment, to those intentions, to the right intentions. Some nights we're going to be better than others. It's not like, I just think that's the human element, but I think it's really about intentions and commitment to those intentions night in and night out. And I feel like the group has done a really good job with that, in that regard. And I don't think it's by coincidence that we're getting some results.
Do you think, this might be too loose of a definition, but do you feel
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's something that we've been trying to encourage all year long, is playing a more direct game, playing a more straight ahead game. I think it makes us harder to play against. I think it gives us an opportunity to control momentum, gives us an opportunity to control territory. You know, and certainly we want to provide the latitude for some of our top people to act on their instincts and, you know, and make the plays that they see in front of them. And we're trying to find that sweet spot.
In some ways, obviously nobody's going to say you're better without a guy like Panarin, right? But I don't think a lot of people would describe him as playing very direct. And now you add Cartier, you add Sikora, Meloff. Like, these are guys that have more of that in their game. Do you think in some ways the roster has kind of shifted more in that direction over the course of the season?
Possibly, you know, but I don't think, you know, I don't want you to misconstrue what the message is. It's not that, you know, elite players like Brett, that their games aren't conducive to this type of play. I think, you know, once again, I try hard to study the league, and, you know, I love hockey, so I watch it a lot. We do a lot of due diligence in the off season. You know, when you look at you know, I always use the phrase the modern game. You look at the NHL and how the game's being played today. You know, the better teams in the league play for the most part, a pretty straight ahead game, and they have elite players on their team. So it's not to say that we can't make plays, we can't go east-west, or we can't do some of the things, say that, you know, that's part of Brett's identity as an individual, or elite players in that regard. It's more about just, you know, having some predictability around different aspects of our game, that help us play the game in a quicker, more straight ahead fashion. I think it still provides opportunities for elite players to make elite plays, if that makes sense. So, you know, I don't know that, you know, I'm not sure what you're asking me, but you know, I don't know that that it's necessarily at this point personnel based as much as it is just you know, just a willingness and a commitment to those intentions.
With Hooley's emergence, how positive that is maybe for, you know, build on that next year, the way makes for.
Yeah, I'm happy for Will. You know, he hadn't scored in a while, and, you know, to get a hat trick, it's hard to score in this league. You know, I said that after Gabe's hat trick. You know, so, you know, a guy scores 3 goals in a game, that's something to be celebrated, and he should feel good about that. You know, he had a great game for us. You know, Will's a good player. He's a great athlete. He's big, he's strong, he can skate. You know, and I know how hard he works at his game and prides himself on scoring goals. So there was a stretch there leading up to it where he hadn't scored in a while, but we felt like he was getting closer. And so, you know, we try to talk to him just about the process every day, and, you know, of how you put yourself in positions to score goals. You know, and if you continue to put yourself in positions, you'll score. And so that was really the conversations that we've had with Will around it, is, you know, trying to help him better understand, how can I put myself in those positions? Can I get inside more? Here are some examples. You know, we use the film a lot to try to, you know, talk to players like Will in those circumstances. So without a doubt, I think it's something that he can build on. You know, I think he's, if I'm not mistaken, he's at the 20 goal mark. You know, it's hard to score 20 goals in this league. And, you know, Will deserves a lot of credit for that.
I wanted to ask about Matt Remke. I know you said we probably won't see him play again this season, but just how is he doing? How's he progressing?
Yeah, he's good. You know, he trains every day. He's working hard. You know, obviously it's disappointing the injury that he endured. But he's working hard. He's doing well. He's in good spirits. He'd rather be on the ice, I can promise you that.
Sure.
Yes.